We are deeply honored to host the distinguished author, Robin Wall Kimmerer, this evening. As you settle into this space, I want to share very briefly about who we are as a community, because I'm certain that at least half of you in this room are Unitarian Universalists. You just don't know it yet. Each Sunday morning at 10:30, people gather here bringing their diverse beliefs, backgrounds, and experiences to create something remarkable together. We are a liberal, non-Christian religious community that draws wisdom from many sources, from science and poetry, from personal experience and world traditions, from nature herself. Our Sunday services explore different facets of the human experience with messages that speak to love, justice, and our shared work of bending the moral arc of the universe. In this space, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Whether you identify as atheist, Buddhist, humanist, agnostic, pagan, Christian, Jewish, or follow any other path entirely, you are welcome here. Whether you are straight or queer, whatever your race or ethnicity, whatever your age or ability, you are welcome in this space. We celebrate the fullness of human identity and experience, knowing that it is our differences that make us stronger. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold sacred the interconnected web of all existence. Dr. Kimmerer's work speaks powerfully to this core value, this recognition that we are not separate from nature, but intimately woven into its fabric. Her teachings about reciprocity and gratitude align deeply with our commitment to environmental stewardship and our responsibility to care for this earth and all of her creatures. Whether you are a longtime member, occasional visitor, or joining us for the first time tonight, know that you are welcome in this space. We invite you to return any Sunday to join us as we work together to nurture our spirits and help heal our world, because, beloveds, we need every single one of you for the resistance. Welcome.
Thank you, Reverend Joe, and thank you to Sid Hill, Tatadaho of the Haudenosaunee from Onondaga for opening this evening. My name's Andy Major. I'm the coordinator of Syracuse Cultural Workers. We're delighted to see a full house here, to also welcome those of you viewing the live stream on Facebook across the country, and some of you just across the hall in the social hall. There's so many people who came out that not everyone can fit here in the sanctuary. So that's great, and is a sign that there's so many of us that are hungering for a different vision from what we're seeing coming out of Washington right now. So Syracuse Cultural Workers was born in 1982. We grew out of the Syracuse Peace Council, the oldest local independent peace and social justice organization in the country. Yeah, that's it. So we continue a tradition that began with the Peace Council of publishing an annual peace calendar, posters, and other products to inspire folks to work for peace and social justice. Cultural Workers identifies as a movement business, which means we're not in business to make profits. We're in business to serve a movement of people who seek to transform the world, to bring a vision together that Reverend Joe described, that Sid described in a language which many of us couldn't understand the words, but get the feeling that we're all in this together. Doing that in a capitalist culture is not always so easy, particularly given our commitment to honoring the workers who produce the goods that we sell and to be eco-friendly in doing so. But we have been doing it for 42 years and hope to continue for many more. And at this moment, as Reverend Joe alluded, the need for resistance, for people organizing and coming together to stand up for the values we believe in, is greater than at any time in my lifetime. So I first met Robin Kimmerer a bit over 20 years ago when she came to the Peace Council along with her daughter Larkin, who was in high school. And Larkin, like her mom, was an unusual person in that she wanted to do an internship with the Syracuse Peace Council as a high school student. That was around the time of the Iraq War in the early 2000s. I initially knew Robin as a professor of botany at SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, and knew her as a pioneer in bringing together traditional ecological knowledge, knowledge based in indigenous cultures and ways of knowing, along with the scientific kinds of understandings of the environment that she learned through the Western schooling systems. And Robin's both her personal knowledge as an indigenous woman and her scientific knowledge and her poetic voice weave together those ideas in a way that has been so powerful for people who have come out tonight and millions of people across the country and across the world. Her first book that really made things big was Braiding Sweetgrass in 2013, a book that has been a bestseller for us at Syracuse Cultural Workers ever since that time. Since then, she's been awarded a MacArthur Fellowship. She's become a New York Times best-selling author, someone interviewed in many, many forums across the country. And then in the fall, her newest book, Serviceberry, came out. And Robin will be reading from the Serviceberry tonight. So we really look forward to that. The program is that Robin will read and sprinkle in some commentary. We'll have a short time for questions. We'll ask folks to not use that as an open mic time, but as a time to concisely ask a question of Robin, because people are here to listen to her and share from her wisdom. And then afterwards, there'll be an opportunity to have books signed by Robin out in the social hall. So encourage you, if you haven't already, to check out the books and other products from Syracuse Cultural Workers, as well as the table from neighbors of the Onondaga Nation, where you can learn about and join in the campaign to compel Onondaga County to finally fulfill the promise to return land to the Onondaga Nation on the shore of Onondaga Lake. So let's hear a little support for that effort. Lastly, many of you, as you came in, generously donated to support the Onondaga Nation's fire department, which has significantly increased responsibilities as a result of 1,000 acres of land in the Tully Valley, which was recently returned to Onondaga, a very significant step. But also a drop in the bucket, right? We're on Onondaga land. Onondaga land stretches up to beyond the Canadian border, down into what's now called Pennsylvania. So these 1,000 acres is a very important step. It's the largest land back in New York State history, but there's so much more to do as we work with our Onondaga sisters and brothers for justice and for a sustainable future. So I ask you to join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Ani, bonjour. Shabadaske gish kokwene jasnakas, bodwe wadni kwenda, megaze dodem, minwa ko dodem. Shishabanyek, midewes, mikwech, kinegeko konijan. In our beautiful Potawatomi language, where I'm just a beginner, I give you greetings, tell you that I'm a member of the Bear Clan and of the Eagles of the CitizenPotawatomi Nation, and my home reserve is in Shawnee, Oklahoma, but I'm so privileged to live here among my Onondaga neighbors in Haudenosaunee territory, and to remember the unpaid debt of land, of history, and pertinent to this evening's thinking together of knowledge of how it is that we care for the land. I also want to tell you that from up here, gosh, you all look so beautiful and rosy-cheeked. I can't imagine why that is. So thank you so much for coming out on this really blustery night. And thank you to Andy for inviting me to read from Serviceberry. I'm really happy to do that. And thank you, Tadadaho, for the opening. And whenever I hear those words, I always want to think about the commitment that we make as we give gratitude for all the gifts that we have been given, all the gifts of the earth, that we commit ourselves to live in such a way that the earth will be grateful for us, for our presence here. I also want to say thank you for that really nice introduction, but I need to amend it. Because I'm not who you think I am. So much more. Not how you think. Because standing before you is also 1 billion microbial cells who are running my guts and therefore my brain. And about 3,000 invertebrates on my surface, innumerable fungi, to say nothing of the fact that every one of my cells has been colonized by a symbiotic prokaryote who took up residence as a mitochondrion millions of years ago and has been with us animals ever since. My bones are not me. They're the minerals from this soil and from our shared groundwater. My muscles are full of carbon on short-term loan from corn. And the breath that oxygenates my blood and yours is the exhalation of trees. I had a cup of my favorite white pine tea this morning, and that white pine doesn't stand alone either. They are inseparable from the mycorrhizal network, linking them to myriad others, the bacteria, the bark beetles, the nuthatch, the pine drops blooming by the roots. That pine is no more an individual than I am. We are all, every one of us, part of the great green we. So thank you for that introduction, but I cannot claim credit. And I tell you this because an important assumption of capitalist economic theory is that every individual will act to advance their own self-interest. Therefore, as we explore the grip of economics, it matters how we think about self-interest and what is an individual. Where exactly do we draw the boundary between the self and the natural world? If you are here this evening to listen to a nature writer, what's the boundary between nature and the nature writer? And in the Western worldview, the anthropocentric worldview, those are separate things. A human people apart from nature. And we think sometimes of ourselves as perched atop this fictional pyramid of human exceptionalism, different from, superior to the 200 million other species with whom we share the planet. Species that get reduced to objects, to property. But in the kin-centric, indigenous worldview, that boundary is blurred because all species are understood as intrinsically valuable, as distinct beings, and in fact, our teachers, worthy of respect. We're all connected. We are the web of relatives. And we'll come back to that idea. And if this kinship worldview, this worldview of connection seems too abstract for you tonight, let's all maybe do a little experiment. Breathe. Just breathe. And know that the air inflating your lungs is rich in oxygen. That oxygen enabling your mitochondria was given to you by the plants. In this moment, they are keeping you alive. Who is it that's at the top of this pyramid? And then breathe out. And if you could somehow watch that carbon dioxide just spin out from you, leaving your body, it would swirl over to the stomates of those fir trees that are outside May Memorial, where it's taken up by chloroplasts to keep them alive. Your exhalation is their life. Their exhalation is your life. We need never feel alone again. Where are the boundaries of self-interest now? So let's follow that exhalation of carbon dioxide together and follow it on a little field trip. You want to go on a field trip with me? Right up to the leaf of a serviceberry tree. A little bit of a reading from Serviceberry. The cool breath of evening slips off the wooded hills, displacing the heat of the day, and with it come the birds, as eager for the cool as I am. They arrive in a flock of calls that sound like laughter, and I have to laugh back with the same delight. They are all around me, cedar waxwings and catbirds, and a flash of bluebird iridescence. I have never felt such a kinship to my namesake, Robin, as in this moment when we are both stuffing our mouths with berries and chortling with happiness. The bushes are laden with fat clusters of red, blue, and wine purple in every stage of ripeness. So many you can literally pick them by the handful. I'm glad I have a pail, and it is getting pretty heavy. The birds carry their berries in the bucket of their bellies, and I wonder if they'll be able to fly with so much cargo. This abundance of berries feels like a pure gift from the land. I have not earned or paid for or labored for these berries. There is no mathematics of worthiness or merit that reckons that I deserve these in any way, and yet here they are, along with the sun and the air and the birds and the rain, gathering in towers of cumulonimbus, a distant storm building. You could call these things natural resources, but the robins and I know them as gifts. We both sing gratitude with our mouths full. Saskatoon, Juneberry, Shadbush, Shadblow, Sugar Plum, Serviceberry. These are among the many names for Amelanchier. Ethnobotanists know that the more names a plant has, the greater its cultural importance. This tree is beloved for its fruits, for medicinal use, and for the early froth of flowers that you know whiten the woodland edges at the first hint of spring. And Serviceberry is known as a calendar plant, so faithful is it to seasonal weather patterns. Its bloom is a sign that the ground has thawed and the shad are running upstream. Or at least it was, back in the day when rivers were clear and free enough to support the spawning of shad. Calendar plants like Serviceberry are important for synchronizing the seasonal rounds of traditional Indigenous peoples who move in an annual cycle through our homelands to where the food is ready. Instead of changing the land to suit our convenience, we changed ourselves. Sorry. Yes. Eating with the seasons is a way of honoring abundance by going to meet the food where and when it arrives. A world of produce warehouses and grocery stores enables the practice of having what you want when you want it. I wrestle with those raspberries in ripeness. We force the food to come to us at considerable financial and ecological cost, rather than following the practice of taking what has been given to us, each in its own time. These serviceberries are not coerced, and their carbon footprint is 0. Maybe that's why they taste so good. They come only this time of year, these ephemeral sips of summer, without an aftertaste of harm. In Potawatomi, Serviceberry is called Mosses.She, which is a superlative. It means the best of the berries. I feel one on my tongue, and I agree with my ancestors. Imagine a fruit that tastes like a blueberry, crossed with the satisfying heft of an apple, a touch of rose water, and a minuscule crunch of almond-flavored seeds. It tastes like nothing a grocery store has to offer. Wild, complex, with a flavor that your body recognizes as real food, the real food it's been waiting for. I can almost feel my mitochondria doing a happy dance. For me, the most important part of the word Mosses.She is min, the root word for berry. That word is a revelation because it's also the root word for a gift. In naming the plants who shower us with goodness, we recognize that these are gifts, gifts from our plant relatives, manifestations of their generosity, their care, and their love for us. I can't help but gaze at them, these shiny gems cupped in my hand, and breathe out gratitude. In the presence of such gifts, gratitude is the intuitive first response. This gratitude flows toward our plant elders, and it radiates to the rain, to the sunshine, to the improbability of bushes spangled with morsels of sweetness in a world that can be bitter. In the Potawatomi worldview, it's not just fruits that are understood as gifts, rather all of the sustenance that the land provides, from fish to firewood, everything that makes our lives possible, the splints for baskets, roots for medicines, the trees whose bodies make our homes, and the pages of our books. All of it is provided by the lives of the more than human beings. This is always true, whether it's harvested directly from the forest or whether it's mediated by commerce and harvested from the shelves of the store. It all comes from Shkapukwe, from Mother Earth. And when we speak of these things not as natural resources or commodities, but as gifts, the whole relationship to the natural world changes. Because to name the world as gift rather than commodity is to feel your membership in that web of reciprocity. It makes you happy, but it also makes you accountable. Conceiving of something as a gift changes your relationship in a profound way. Even though the physical makeup of that thing has not changed, the woolly knit hat that you could purchase at the store will keep you warm, regardless of its origin. But if it was hand knit by your favorite auntie, then you are in a relationship with that thing in a very different way. You're responsible for it, and your gratitude has motive force in the world. You're likely to take much better care of that gift hat than of the commodity hat, aren't you? Because the gift hat is knit out of relationships. This is the power of gift thinking. And I imagine if we acknowledge that everything we consume is a gift from Mother Earth, we would take better care of what we have given. I was once giving a lecture at a College of Natural Resources at a big prestigious university. And I took the opportunity to interrogate that name of natural resources, because after all, what that means is raw materials, beautiful lives that we are about to convert into something that we can sell. And as it happens, that college was in the process of doing the same interrogation. They thought they probably ought to change their name given its implications. So I took a little risk and offered a suggestion at the end of my talk. I said, why don't you change your name to the Department of Earthly Gifts? Yeah, you should have seen the beatific smiles that went around the room. Oh, yes, everybody said, yes, I want to work for the Department of Earthly Gifts. Heck, I never wanted to be chairman of anything, but I would even be chairman of the Department of Earthly Gifts. But of course, that department chose something else. A colleague from that university said, oh, that is a beautiful idea, but it would kind of put the kibosh on grinding up trees. So how we think ripples out to how we behave. If we view these berries as an object, as property, it can be exploited in a market economy. When something moves from the status of gift to the status of commodity, we become detached from ethical responsibility for them. And we know the consequences of that. So the question that propels the Serviceberry is, why then have we permitted the dominance of economic systems that commoditize everything, that create scarcity instead of abundance, that promote accumulation rather than sharing. We have surrendered our values to an economic system that actively harms what we love. It pains me to know that an old-growth forest is worth more as lumber than as the lungs of the earth. And yet I am harnessed to this economy. I'm complicit in ways large and small, yoked to pervasive extraction. I'm wondering how we fix that. And I'm not alone in that. This system of market economies that we're given as a default is hardly the only model that is out there. And yet we are so immersed in it, we think it's just the way the world works. Anthropologists have observed and shared lots of different kinds of cultural economies colored by very different worldviews about how we could provide for ourselves. And that's what economics is. How can we provide for ourselves and for one another? Among these different ways of being for market economies are gift economies that mirror the reciprocal exchanges of nature. As the berries plunked into my bucket, I was thinking about what I'd do with them all. I dropped some off for friends and neighbors, and I'll certainly fill the freezer for Juneberry muffins in February. This problem of deciding what to do with abundance reminds me of a report that linguist Daniel Everett wrote as he was learning from a hunter-gatherer community in the Brazilian rainforest. And Everett reports that a hunter he was working with had brought home a sizable kill, far too much to be eaten by his family. He was very lucky that day. The researcher asked, how is he going to store the excess? Smoke it, dry it. These technologies were well known. But the hunter was puzzled by the question. Store the meat? Why would he do that? Instead, he sent out an invitation to a feast, and soon the neighboring families were gathered around his fire until every last morsel was consumed. This seemed like maladaptive behavior to the anthropologist, who asked again, given the uncertainty of meat in the rainforest, why didn't the hunter store the meat for himself, which is what the market economic system of his home culture would have predicted? Store my meat? I store my meat in the belly of my brother, replied the hunter. I feel a great debt to that unnamed hunter for those words. There beats the heart of gift economies, an antecedent alternative to market economies. In a gift economy, wealth is understood as having enough to share. And the practice for dealing with abundance is to give it away. In fact, status is determined not by how much one owns, but how much one gives away. The currency in a gift economy is relationship, expressed as gratitude, as interdependence and reciprocity. A gift economy nurtures community bonds. The economic unit is we rather than I, because all flourishing, as we know, is mutual. So the hunter who shared the feast with you today could well anticipate that you would share from your full fish net next week, or offer your labor in repairing a boat sometime in the future. The prosperity of the community grows from the flow of relationships, not the accumulation of goods. When the natural world is understood as gift instead of private property, ethics limit accumulation of abundance. Gifts are not meant to be hoarded and therefore made scarce for others, but given away, which generates enoughness for everyone. Gift economies are common in traditional indigenous communities around the world. Gatherings of our Potawatomi people often include a giveaway ceremony, which is meant to reinforce relationships through gift giving. And in the Western world, oftentimes somebody who's celebrating a life event can expect to receive gifts. But in our way, that equation is reversed. The ones who have been blessed with good fortune share the blessing by giving away. And well-known examples of gift economies include the potlatches of the Pacific Northwest, in which gifts circulate, solidifying bonds and redistributing wealth. Traditional potlatches are celebrations in which possessions are given away with lavish generosity to mark life events. The ceremonial feasts display the wealth of the givers, enhance their prestige, and affirm the web of relationships. The gifts that are received are likely to be given away at the next ceremony, keeping wealth in motion and cementing bonds. Tellingly, potlatches were banned. They were banned by colonial governments under the influence of missionaries in the 1800s. Potlatches were seen as, quote, contrary to the civilized values of accumulation. And they undermined the notions of individual property essential to the colonial agenda. These two economic worldviews of prosperity gained through individual accumulation and prosperity gained through sharing the commons underpin the history of colonization in this country. The whole enterprise of dispossession of Indigenous peoples was designed to eradicate the notion of land as the source of belonging and to replace it with land as a source of belongings. This required a narrowing of the definition of well-being from commonwealth to individual wealth. But you don't have to participate in a Potawatomi giveaway or a potlatch to witness gift economies all around you. A couple of examples, again from Serviceberry. When August rolls around, my neighbor Sandy down the road in an old farmhouse puts out a card table under her front maples. The canning jars with stalks of bright gladiolas caught my eye. There's also a stack of zucchini, a basket of new red potatoes, and a sign that says free. A person can only use so many glads, and so Sandy shares the gladness with whoever might stop. Zucchinis are another story. Around here, when late summer heat might bring a new squash every day, finding home for surplus zooks is no joke. They will grow from cucumber size to baseball bats in a matter of days. People have been known to put them in each other's mailboxes or surreptitiously place them on the front seat of a parked car. I'm not sure this could be framed as a gift. More like a stealthy game of self-preservation. But not everybody has a garden and a pestilence of squash. Sandy gets the pleasure of seeing a car stop, maybe on the way home from work, to accept the gift of fresh veggies for dinner and a bouquet for the family table. The currency of exchange is the secret smiles on both their faces. The zucchini and flowers model goes beyond individual sharing to organizations. My daughter, Larkin, who you heard about already, today leads an agricultural extension program for her county. And the Master Gardener members produce lots of surplus from their demonstration plots. Outside their office, there's a cute little setup where veggies and flowers are distributed to the community for free. All summer long, its bins are full of color and fresh food. And after the last frost, when the potatoes are all done, acorn squashes are gone, and even the hardiest kale has been exhausted, the shelves are bare beneath the sign. It had all been given away, and the next day called for storing the stand in the barn for the winter. So the staff was very surprised when they got to work and found it gone. Someone had taken the entire stand. With characteristic generosity, they chalked this up to ambiguous syntax rather than outright theft. After all, the sign did say, free farm stand. This is the inherent problem with gift economies. They don't function well when there are cheaters who violate the trust. This little gift economy was derailed by too much taking, by breaking the rules of sharing. And so here's where I admit to you that I share the common characterization of economics as the dismal science. In fact, my grandson and I, he's 10, we share a kind of a secret code word. When one of us realizes that the most boring possible thing is going on around us, we might silently mouth to each other, economics. And we just start laughing at our misfortune. That secret code word long predated the Serviceberry. After all, I am a botanist. I am a practitioner of what I think of as the joyful science, the jaw-dropping wonder at the creativity of the green world's kind of science. So I can scarcely acknowledge without laughing or rolling my eyes that I just said to you, economics is that, and that I'm now writing about it. The origin story for the Serviceberry is that I received a request some years ago from Emergence magazine, a publication you should all know. It works wonders at the intersection of nature, spirituality, and culture. I'd written for them many times before, and they said, would you write us a piece about economics? And I said, no, of course not, because I'm a botanist, and I don't know anything about economics. And then I realized that my understanding of the human economy, in which we're all embedded, was really limited. I hadn't been paying much attention to it. I was just caught in it without thinking too much about it, caught without my consent or choice. What little I do know about human economics is that rapacious capitalism actively harms the living fabric of the planet and threatens our survival. So, yeah. Well, they said, that's why we asked you for a fresh perspective. And you know, the words ecology and the words economy come from the same root, that Greek root oikos, meaning home. Economy is the management of the household. Ecology is the study of the home. And indeed, they shouldn't be in opposition to one another. They should be mutually supporting. So, as a botanist and a plant ecologist, I'm deeply familiar with the economy of nature. And by this, I mean the way that the ecological community meets its needs and distributes them to all in the community. How all species interconnect through exchanges so that all prosper. That's the economy of nature. Or not. Sometimes not everyone prospers. Evolution by natural selection weeds out the arrangements that don't create thriving. There are ecological principles which organize this, natural laws, if you will, as if soil, water, tree, bugs, and birds all had held a big economic summit, the G7 of the natural world, and agreed on a policy to promote sustainability. Does a Serviceberry have an economy? If an economy is a system that generates goods and services, then absolutely. That's one of the reasons I chose to invite Serviceberry into this conversation, because it is, after all, the Serviceberry. So in this little book, what I'm trying to do is to think on the page. I skipped a part. Yes, after that essay in Emergence, Scribner, the publisher of the Serviceberry, said, you know what? November 2024 is coming, and I have a feeling that the world is going to need a different message. Would you take that Serviceberry essay and develop it further, and we'll publish it as a little book to be released at that time? And I'm really grateful for that prescient view of how much we need alternative ways of thinking in this particular moment. I'm running over time, of course, always. Well, that's nice of you, but let me move on a little. Thinking about reciprocity in gift exchanges makes me think about the person who stole the free farm stand. We had laughed it off as a mistake of little consequence. But the mindset that claims permission to convert a free gift to private property robbing the community for individual gain is of the highest consequence. Our petty thief deserves a name. So let's call him Darren, after the CEO of ExxonMobil. We often lay the blame for the outcomes of cutthroat capitalism on the system. There's merit in that, given the complex layered interactions, but there's no excuse. But let's remember that the system is led by individuals, by a relatively small number of people who have names, who have more money than God, and certainly less compassion. They sit in boardrooms deciding to exploit fossil fuels for short-term gain while the world burns. They know the science, they know the consequences, but they proceed with ecocidal business as usual and do it anyway. Their behavior feels to me like the same kind of arrogant entitlement as Darren the farm stand thief or Darren the planet wrecker. They're all thieves, stealing our future, while we pass around the zucchini. I'm not minimizing the significance of our sweet vegetable gift economies. On the contrary, they are the emblem of the rich land-based abundance that is possible, stitched together with what was once called being a good neighbor. There are so many more of us than of the Darrens. I lament my own immersion in an economy that grinds what is beautiful and unique into dollars, converts gifts to commodities and a currency that enables us to purchase things we don't really need while destroying what we do. Serviceberries show us another model, one based on reciprocity rather than accumulation, where wealth and security come from the quality of relations, not from an illusion of self-sufficiency. Without relationships with bees and birds, serviceberries would disappear from the planet. Even if they hoarded abundance, perched atop the wealth ladder, they would not save themselves from the fate of extinction if their partners didn't also share in that abundance. The pollinators, the birds. Hoarding won't save us either. It won't even save Darren. As I watch the robins and cedar waxwings fill their bellies, I see a gift economy in which abundance is stored in the belly of my brother. Supporting a thriving bird community is essential to the well-being of the serviceberry and everyone up the food chain. That seemed especially important to an immobile, long-lived being like a tree who can't run away from ruptured relationships. Thriving is possible only if you've nurtured a community. We live in the tension between what is and what is possible. On one hand, we can witness the reciprocity of nature, showing us how things are supposed to work. And on the other, we see the outcomes of extractive capitalism breaking every facet of natural law. I'm sure that I'm not alone in feeling despair in that comparison and feeling powerless to change it, but people are changing it, illuminating alternatives by having the courage to say, let's create something different, something which is aligned with our values. We don't have to be complicit with destruction. There are growing examples of little gift economies all around us, if we look. From community gardens to buy nothing networks, mutual aid societies, repair cafes, shared community tool sheds, regenerative agriculture, entrepreneurial ecology, donut economics, and so much innovation based on creating security through localized gift economies. Here's a familiar example we could build upon. The abundance in my life, in addition to berries, tends to be books. The piles on my nightstand threaten to avalanche onto me in the middle of the night. So when I turn the last page, I might give the book to a friend. You do it too. That simple act is the atom of a gift economy. I don't sell it to my friend. I have no expectation of compensation, but that book didn't go to the landfill, and my friend and I have something to talk about. a channel of reciprocity. It's not so different than what the Serviceberries are doing. The question that's often asked is, how do we take gift economies from those individual relationships and scale them up? I have to say, I don't think that's necessarily the right question. Why does everything have to be expanded and scaled up? It is the small scale and context that makes the flow of gifts meaningful. But if gift economies are to have an impact, I'm willing to think about what that might look like. And the village down the road from me is too small for a public library, but there's a wooden post outside one of the churches with a brightly painted box, a little free library, with shelves full of paperback mysteries, children's books, and a how-to manual. Books flow in and out to passersby with no obligation. The box was a gift to the community, which attracted the gift of books, which attracted the gift of readers. The little free library movement has spread all over the country to share a love of reading, a gift economy on books. This is an incremental step beyond sharing a book with a friend or sharing with your neighborhood, but it scales up, doesn't it, to the larger community. What about public libraries? They too embody the notion of common property. Libraries are models of gift economies, providing free access not only to books, but to music and tools and seeds and more. We don't each have to own everything. The books in the library belong to everybody. They serve the public. Take the books, enjoy them, bring them back so somebody else can enjoy them with literary abundance for all. All you need is a library card, which is a kind of agreement of mutual respect. It is an agreement based in the commons. Libraries, parks, trails, cultural landscapes are what we call common resources. They're meant to be shared and cared for by the people who use them. They become possible when we pool our abundant excess dollars in the forms of taxes for the common good. We grumble about paying taxes, but in essence, this legal obligation is an investment in collective care for the commons. Other nations provide more than books for the common good. Social democracies provide free universal health care, education for all, elder care, family support, investment in sustainability. The rate of taxation to support the common good is much higher in the other countries than the United States, and so is the happiness index. When we're paying our taxes, such models help us to imagine how we might encourage elements of gift economies within the matrix of capitalism, which I'm sad to say is not going away anytime soon. When I began thinking about this and struggling with my own ignorance, I was grateful for my son-in-law, who teaches high school economics. I had to ask him exactly what is an economic system. He shared with me the definition that he uses in class. It's the study of how we make decisions in the face of scarcity. In order for capitalist markets to function, there must be scarcity. And so we live in a system which is designed to create it where it does not actually exist. That converts abundant, commonly held gifts to scarce commodities. Friends, what if scarcity is just a cultural construct? What if scarcity is a fiction that fences us off from a better way of life? When I examine Serviceberry economics, I don't see scarcity. I see abundance. I see abundance shared. Of course, sometimes there's not enough rain, and then the scarcity ripples through all the relationships for sure. But that is real scarcity when the rains don't come. It's a physical limitation. The kind of scarcity produced by natural fluctuation is not what troubles me. Economics based on scarcity rather than cooperation is now causing us to face the danger of real scarcity, of growing shortages of food and clean water, breathable air, and fertile soil. Climate change is a product of this extractive economy and is forcing us to confront the inevitable outcome of our consumptive lifestyle. Genuine scarcity, for which the market has no remedy. The indigenous philosophy of the gift economy, based in our responsibility to pass on the gifts, has no tolerance for creating artificial scarcity through hoarding. In fact, in Potawatomi culture, we name a monster. The monster in Potawatomi culture we call Wendigo. Wendigo is a being who is ill. It's a human who became ill because they took too much. Because the name actually translates to the one who thinks only of themselves. The disease of the Wendigo is that the more they eat, the hungrier they get. Wendigo thinking jeopardizes the survival of community by incentivizing individual accumulation far beyond the satisfaction of enoughness. Contemporary Wendigos who can cannibalize life for accumulation of money need their own name. Perhaps Darren would fit. Anthropologists who study gift economies note that they function well in small, tightly knit communities. You might rightly observe that we no longer live in small, tightly knit communities. But we could. It's within our power to create such webs of interdependence, quite outside the market economy. Maybe that is how we extract ourselves from a cannibal economy. Intentional communities of mutual self-reliance and reciprocity are the wave of the future, and their currency is sharing. I don't think that market capitalism is going to vanish. The faceless institutions that benefit from it are too entrenched. The thieves are very powerful. But I don't think it's pie in the sky to imagine that we can create incentives to nurture a gift economy that runs right alongside the market economy. After all, what we crave is not trickle-down faceless profits, but reciprocal face-to-face relationships, which are naturally abundant, but made scarce by large-scale economies. We have the power to change that, to create local reciprocal economies. There's a wonderful book called Sacred Economics by Charles Eisenstein, and he has a quote which I find really moving. He says, "The next stage of human economy will parallel what we are beginning to understand about nature. It will call forth the gifts of each of us. It will emphasize cooperation over competition. It will encourage circulation over hoarding, and it will be cyclical. Money may not disappear anytime soon, but it will serve a diminished role as it takes on more of the properties of the gift. The economy will shrink, but our lives will grow." I see the potential for a mosaic of gift economies emerging in the examples of my neighbors. After all, gift economies are more fun. They're more satisfying and as nourishing as Juneberry pie. And as fun as sneaking zucchini into a parked car. I've long believed that the ones who have more fun, more joy, the ones who have more joy win. Maybe this levels the power differential between us and the Darrens. We have joy and justice on our side. Regenerative economies which reciprocate the gift are the only path forward to replenish the possibility of mutual flourishing for birds, berries, and people. We need an economy that shares the gifts of the earth, following the lead of our oldest teachers, the plants, the Serviceberry. Miigwech, thank you for listening.
are going to open up the floor. Thank you, Robin, so much. That was beautiful. And what a lovely human you are. Thank you for being here. We're going to open up the floor for questions. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand high, and we will bring a microphone around to you. You have to speak in the microphone as if you are a rock star. People hear you, right? So for accessibility and those that are deaf, like myself, we need to speak into the microphone, please.
Hi. For the last several years, I have taken my garden to the front yard. There's no sun in the backyard. I have half the trees in the block. Okay. I have a sign out, just garden, just help yourself. But I want to know your thoughts on how to expand it, to help grow community and not just feed my neighbors. Because I get some very lovely thank yous, but I want to create a community.
Thank you so much for doing that. That is a perfect example of a small local gift economy that's breeding relationship, right? You're talking to your neighbors in a way that maybe you weren't before. And if your question is how do you make that even bigger, one of the things that I love about when folks are converting their yards to giveaway gardens is the signage. Put a sign up that explains what you're doing, right? And then you're teaching everybody who walks by, everybody who stops for a bouquet of flowers. So I think that passing the word creates a contagion of community. You've probably inspired people all around you that you may not even know by doing that. But at the same time, can you go farther than that? You know, one of the really important acts of reciprocity with birds and bees and berries is native plant gardening, to convert your lawn. You probably know this, that a lawn is a net carbon emitter, right? Your lawn contributes to greenhouse gases, whereas if it's a native plant garden, it's a net carbon sink. So the simple act of it's not simple. The act, the hard work and determination and community involved in creating a native plant landscape is a way of giving back to the pollinators, to the birds, to your neighbors. So that, because you're a gardener, that is one step up to expand your circles of reciprocity. But your skills as a gardener could also be really useful in a community garden and teaching others to garden, etc. I want to, move. I think gardening is one of the most important things we can do. But in fact, everybody in here has a gift. There is a thing that you do that you can share with others that creates community around you. And I think that's the call to all of us. It is an act of resistance to create community, right? To create abundance and shared abundance and model a different way of being than the one that we are being exposed to at this moment.
Thank you. So you talked about
Speak.
you talked about the honorable harvest. So asking permission before taking and respecting the answer. My question is, how do you, or how do I, or how do we perceive that answer?
Great question. Yeah, that the ethic of the honorable harvest is both in Braiding Sweetgrass, and they asked me to put it in Serviceberry as well, because it's an ethics of respectful taking from the earth that enhances reciprocity. So the question is, part of the honorable harvest says, ask permission before you take from those plants, from those animals, from that water. And I would say that the honorable harvest applies to just about everything that we consume. Ask permission, get consent, right, before taking. And your question, as I understand it, is how do we receive consent from the living world? Yeah? Two ways to answer that. One is as a scientist. that scientific tools are a really good way to be able to evaluate whether the harvest is sustainable or not. Our tools of observation, to look around you and say, is this population really healthy? Are there a lot of little ones as well as elders in the community? Is it whole and functioning? Does it have enough to spare? So those empirical observational ways can help us know whether it's okay to take or not. But there are also deeply intuitive ways of knowing, a kind of nonverbal listening to the living world, to be able to sense from those plants what they are telling you. And it's a skill that can be cultivated. It's a skill that people used to have when we're in right relationship with the living world. But like any muscle that we don't use, it atrophies. But it's a muscle that can be cultivated to be able to listen to the land. Thanks for that good question.
Who else? Judy, you got that in front on the left? Don't run, don't run. We're all fine.
So,
What?
I just have a question now. Do you feel, or maybe it exists, a unit of measurement for the gift economy, like we have for GDP? You know, something that's, I know it's somewhat intangible, but do you know what I'm saying?
I do. What an interesting challenge. We need multiple measurements, but the currency is gratitude. The currency is, I think you could measure it by the number of reciprocal exchanges that are catalyzed by your act. I truthfully have never thought about this, but now I want to. Not that we have to quantify it, but we need to be able to recognize it. We need to be able to recognize it, and that's as close as I can come right now, is the number of reciprocal exchanges that were inspired by what you did. Andy's giving us the same one.
So thank you so much, Robin. I hope we all hear the challenge and the love in what Robin presented to us, that it's on all of us collectively, that we all have a responsibility, that we all have gifts to share. So may we move forward sharing those gifts more fully and find ways to influence those around us to share as well. In just a moment, Tadadaho Hill is going to come back up and do a brief closing, and then Robin will be in the social hall to sign books. Please see the noon table to sign postcards, to go for Lake back, and go to Cultural Workers and buy some more books, t-shirts, other things to help inspire us to carry on this important work. So, Sid.